Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Today, we're looking here at Fantom, which is FTM, and it's a recommendation slash request from my community members. Thank you to my patron. Really do appreciate you reaching out and asking that I cover this here today. Now, moving forward, I'm not a financial advisor. If you're new to the channel, this is for educational purposes only. You should always do your own research, and I always recommend, of course, you doing as much research as possible and learning as much as you can from everyone, right? So just adapt and grow and do as much as you can to learn and grow personally. And my goal is to hopefully help you become a better trader. So I like to try to educate as I go through my videos here to make sure you understand how to kind of take ownership of your own trades, right? That's the important thing there. Of course, make sure you do that. Now, just know also that I share my trades with my community members. So if you're interested in the signal group where I send out signals for my entry points, best practice, of course, as well as buy targets, sell targets. We're even doing swing trading and hodling, of course, holding on for dear life. We're doing all that now, and it's actually really quite exciting. So check that out in your own time. We got about an 80% success rate, applying everything you learn here today every single day myself when I trade. Okay, so check that out in your own time, of course, and also recommend you check out my Telegram community, link in the description below for that. Moving forward, without further ado, let's just go ahead and get to the charts. Let's check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here today at Fantom. Just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin, Ethereum first so we can get a baseline of the market. We know exactly what's going on because any good trader is going to make sure they understand all the angles, right? And Bitcoin is no exception. We have to know what's going on there based on the simple fact that it is pretty much the catalyst for all price movement in the market. So we'll take a look here today. First things first is I utilize TradingView desktop application. And that's what you see here, of course. It's probably the best charting tool you could use. I recommend the paid versions. I have a link in the description below just based on the fact that it gives you a free month so you can kind of get the feel for it. So check that out in your own time, but I definitely recommend it just based solely on the simple fact that it's just the most effective charting tool you could use. The simple moving averages is what I use in the 4-hour chart, so let's go ahead and start with that. And just to preface here, this is the 50-day simple moving average and the 200 down below here, right? So generally speaking, the 50 works more consistent with the price action. It's been a support level, turned into a recent resistance for the last couple of days, but now it's a support again where it broke above, and now it's making a second run. There's this leg up about, it's out 47,300. Awesome. And that just happened probably in the last 15-20 minutes because it was kind of testing this support at about 46.5. So we're looking pretty good here for Bitcoin. It might ramp up to go ahead and test the resistance of 48,000. Also note there's a major resistance above that about 50,000. And what that basically just means is we have a very strong channel here. This could be a strong resistance zone based on the previous amount of volume there. There's a lot of people holding Bitcoin from that point just before the major sell-offs back on April 17th and then May 19th. So just something to note, this could be a strong resistance zone. We'll see what happens when we break 48,000. But we do have a support secondary here at about 44,000. That worked out fantastic today. Almost 412, sorry, 16 hours, 4-hour candlesticks in a row where it just pretty much rejected there. So that's nice. Furthermore, of course, supported about 42,000 just below that. Moving on to Ethereum, let's go ahead and take a quick look here. It's essentially a very similar situation. Only difference is we got different support and resistance levels. So Ethereum's coming up on 3250. That was a major resistance from before. Also note 2900 is a major support. That was tested about 10 times prior, and it's only been tested twice as a support now. So we have a lot of room for growth there if the price does retrace back down. But the key takeaway here is the price is up over the 50-day simple moving average, right? So the second candlestick started here. This one closed already, so we're in good shape. We'll see how the price responds here soon. So Ethereum is going to be off to the races here in a little while, as soon as it can break that resistance there. Let's move on to Fantom. Let's take a look here at the one-day chart first. As we can see, there's a lot of good growth here, obviously. I think I covered this a few weeks ago when it had one of its first increases, and since then it's done very well. I do recall marking this resistance at about 58 cents. Plus or minus a couple cents, because you can see a lot of action closing right there on the one-day chart. Furthermore, we got the price above the 200-day simple moving average, and the 50 is trailing behind. There's a chance we might see a golden cross in the fairly near future, but probably not all that soon. But the 50 does tend to catch up quickly when the price ramps up like that. So we will see what happens maybe in the next week or two. RSI is up over well over 70. It's about 86, so it does appear to be overextended. It's not a terrible sign, but there's a good chance it could retrace and come back down. But keep this in mind. Good news is it did retrace for about 2 days prior to this most recent bull run. So this is a good sign here. Basically means that we do have some consolidation that occurred recently. So we'll go ahead and take a look at TD sequential and see if we were at a state of exhaustion on a shorter time frame. But looking at this, I mean, we've seen about 30% growth in the past 28 hours, right in that range. Okay. So moving on to the 4-hour, I like this a little bit better. See, we can see this, this stepping stone, so to speak. That's a terrible drawing. Sorry, I'm not an artist. And yeah, so that's pretty good. In other words, we should see the price, I would say, progress upwards to possibly even test this resistance level up here if Bitcoin can keep kind of pushing forward. Because right now we can tell Bitcoin's pushing up right at about 47,300, almost 47.4. And if Bitcoin can break this resistance at about 47,800, 48,000, then we're going to see this one take off and probably test this resistance here. But right now, it is a bit on the overextended side, of course, but RSI is still under 70, which is great. And that's why, the reason why is because the price got a chance to calm down recently here with this retracement, which is very, very good. We've got a pretty strong convergence here on the MACD at 1700 on August 18th. We'll mark that. 1700. Right here. So convergence right there. And what I like to do is I always mark that to kind of see the correlation between the convergence on the MACD and also the 1-hour chart for the Ishimoku cloud. And we'll see here. Oh man. Jeez, this happens a lot. This is crazy. And I love having discovered this. As soon as I found this out a while ago, I can tell you that my trading percentage, like my conversion trading, went from like 70 to 80%. And the main reason why is because when you get a convergence in the MACD and the 4-hour chart, the price increases, and it's typically a long signal, right? It's a signal for swing traders to go long. Now, it's not necessarily a day trading tool, but it can still work as a day trader if you look at it first, right? That's why I like to look at it before I jump in on the 15-minute chart. But what I'm getting at here is I marked the convergence on the MACD, basically telling us we got a buy signal, right? The Ishimoku cloud also gives us the exact same buy signal at the exact same time. A lot of times it's plus or minus 4 to 8 hours. One of them signals before the other, but if you always check both and you see where they're at, there's a strong likelihood of the price just continuing upwards. Obviously, the inverse applies too. When the price is below the cloud, it works as a resistance, and it essentially drives the price down. This is obviously a strong bull run from FTM. Fantom's been doing a lot of increasing recently, but the key takeaway here is that when the price breaks above the cloud, it's considered a buy signal, and when it's below, it's a sell signal. When it's inside, you typically don't take entry, which is what's awesome about this, because you can see right there, as soon as it broke above, basically the 4-hour chart was also telling us the MACD converged right at this time. And what that is basically telling us too on the MACD, by the way, it's basically telling us the bears had lost momentum and the bulls are taking control. It's that shift, that paradigm shift between bearish and bullish sentiment. Moving on to TD sequential, let's take a look here. We are at a 7 right now. And if you're new to the TD sequential, it's also a very good indicator, best used on the 1-hour or 4-hour charts. But what this basically tells us is that we've had about 4 hours, because there was a reset with this consolidation period. If you see this here, we got some sideways action. You get a lot of resets here, but the bottom line is that we have kind of a ramp up right now, and we have only about 2 hours left of time in this bull run before it starts to retrace or go sideways. Okay, not to say it won't continue past that, it happens a lot. But for the most part, when you see a 9 on TD sequential, it'll likely reset soon. Here's an example, if you can kind of see this here. So right there, you see this number 1 that starts counting down to a 9. We get this neon color telling us that, hey, we've got a reset. A retracement should happen soon, or in this case, a reversal to the upside. That didn't happen. It continued on for about an extra 5 or 6 hours. But it still went sideways. It didn't keep going down necessarily, but the bottom line here is that state of exhaustion took about 16 hours to complete. Traditionally, you see a 9, it'll stop around 9 and reset. But when you see those things, that's just something that's very helpful. So right now we're at a 7. It could count up to a 9 and come back down. It could just go sideways for a little while longer too. It's hard to say specifically, but generally speaking, that's the concept of what to look for. Since we're under resistance and Bitcoin's kind of jumping off, there's a chance we might see, after a little bit more consolidation, the price try to continue back up. And we'll take a look at the 15-minute chart to identify that. Okay. Now taking a look here, of course, we want to look at Really only two indicators that are the most relevant and the most important. So if you're new to the channel, or if you're not, I'm sorry, you've heard this a million times before. But the bottom line is that they're two of the most important indicators you could utilize, even as a swing trader. Because taking entry, you've got to look at shorter time frames, right? Don't go as low as the 1 minute. That's kind of unnecessary. A lot of noise, a lot of false signals, I guess you could say. But the 15 gives us pretty good, confident signals. And what I mean by that is when the price is over VWAP, it's considered a support level, right? And what VWAP is, if you're new, essentially it's just the volume weighted average price. It takes the volume in the last 24 hours, express it as the price. It'll reset over 24 hours, which is why you see this leg down here and this leg up here. It has to reset and kind of reset the standard deviation, right? Because as it goes further on, it starts getting more elongated and it can kind of become less effective. But when the key takeaway I want you to understand is that when the price is over, it's considered a support. So right here, it's considered support. And right here, when it's under, it's basically resistance, okay? So support and resistance, that's the general concept and how the actual thing works, okay? So that's the blue line. The red line is essentially EMA. That's the exponential moving average. These are the same moving averages used on the MACD, right? When the 12 intersects with the 26 in an upward fashion to give you that buy signal we've already identified just happened a moment ago. Right here, as a matter of fact, that's when the convergence happened. Then that's one of those things where it's considered to be bullish, right? So the price is above the red line here. It's the price above EMA, it's bullish. When it's below, it's bearish. Now keep in mind, there's a lot of channels here being created when it goes up and down. That's where states of consolidation can be confusing and difficult to take entry, okay? So there's no exact science here. However, what is fairly exact is the simple fact that when the price is above EMA and the price above VWAP, those are two really positive indications that the price is moving in the direction of the bears, correction, direction of the bulls. The bears are no longer in control, but also, simply put, it gives you confirmation you're above support, which is why the VWAP is helpful. So instead of relying on those major support and resistance levels or Fibonacci retracement, the VWAP gives you a continuous, consistent support and resistance levels within a 24-hour period. Okay, so right here you can see it reset, of course, because that's 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That just occurred about 40 minutes ago, but that's essentially what it's at. So right here it's working as a support level. You can see the price kind of came down and bounced off of the VWAP. Okay, yes, we lost EMA, but it came off the VWAP. We're good to go, and it keeps writing itself right back up. Okay, so those are just things to kind of look for. The very last thing to look for is these yellow carrots, or the yellow up arrows, essentially. And what that is, that's basically just a notification that I have built in here. This is my own notification that I've created, and it helps me understand when I have confirmation. And to me, confirmation is 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes of confirmation heading in the direction you want to trade. So if you're going long, which most of us do, then you're going to wait for 30 minutes of confirmation. In other words, you're going to wait for two solid green bars in order telling us that the bulls are in control. Right now, this is a period of consolidation, so it is kind of wavering up and down. But that's the general concept of what to look for. So if you look kind of back and you see kind of a history here, look at this, for example. Just before this little run, we got a notification telling us, hey, we've got two green candlesticks closing above EMA and VWAP. You take entry here, and you take your profit up about 9%. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Again, easier said than done. I get that. Retrospect is 2020. Totally understand that. But if you have the price above both simple moving averages on the 1-day charts, and you've got a MACD convergence on the 4-hour chart, the price is above Ishimoku Cloud on the 1-hour chart, and you got the price over EMA and VWAP on the 15 plus 30 minutes of confirmation, that's a perfect storm. That's what I look for. That's what gives me about an average about 80% success rate. And I share all of my signals with my trading community, of course, too. So check that out if you have a chance. Link in the description below, where I obviously communicate with my community members. And what we do is we all trade together, essentially. I provide all of my trades, best practice, entry points, the whole 9 yards to make sure you make a well-informed decision. And that's just everything you learned here today is what I do day in and day out. That's pretty much what I look for. You can absolutely apply this in your own life. Obviously, I have much more time to do this because this is kind of my thing. But the bottom line is you want to look at these things here before you take entry, and I do share those with my community. So check that out, again, in your own time. But what I want to get at here is just to be careful. Don't just jump in arbitrarily. Don't see what you see here and just, okay, I'm taking entry because of it. Do yourself a favor, look at Bitcoin first, understand how it's moving and responding to support and resistance levels. Because if it's getting rejected at consistent consistently at the same resistance, then it may not be advantageous to consider taking entry on something like this that's reliant on Bitcoin. Okay. Again, most altcoins do and are reliant on Bitcoin to an extent. So just something to note. One last thing I want to show you is the average true range for Fantom. In other words, I usually do this initially, I kind of glossed over it, but I want to identify a couple things. First of all, April 17th is right here. Okay, this is the first major sell-off from Bitcoin. So the true range for Fantom before the sell-off from Bitcoin was 32, upwards of about 53 cents. Okay. The price is at about 53 cents right now. Okay. So the average true range for Fantom when Bitcoin was at 50 to 64,000 was in that range right now. So right now we are at the highest point in that range. Yes, it did very well right here, April 25th, after everything else did very well too. But the bottom line you need to understand is that this is going to be a strong resistance level. So the price keeps rejecting at 58 cents. Consider moving your stop limit up. If the price breaks above, consider adding to your position as long as it closes on the one-day chart above that point. Okay. So there's things to understand. So I guess big picture here, does Fantom have enough gas in the tank to exceed this? Yeah, as long as Bitcoin can jump up to 50,000, sure. If Bitcoin keeps getting stunted out at about 48,000, then we might see some sideways action from Fantom. And I personally think that we're only going to see maybe 1 or 2 hours more of sideways action from Fantom right now, and then likely some consolidation, and hopefully a second ramp up once Bitcoin surpasses 48,000. All right, so if you found benefit, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much if you have, and if you made it this far, of course, jump in my Telegram community, obviously, as well. That's a really good group of folks. There's no cost there. And check that out. We can all learn and grow together as well. Okay. All right, so I hope you have a good rest of your day. Appreciate your time. See you in the next one.